really think you have a chance against us, Mr. Cowboy?
Hey, motherfucker, what do you like to do?
Oh, I don't know. Play chess. Screw.
Well, let's play chess.
They give off to Jonathan Taylor. Jump cutting his way close to the goal line. He's in there. Touchdown. I-N-D-Y. Jonathan Taylor.
Wheeler finds Quan from the logo.
Here's Haliburton into the front court. Mishandled it, but gets a shot. Hits it. Hits it.
John, I have never been better to be on the air with you here in Indianapolis, a place where so many of my dreams have come true.
The Ride with JMV on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, big time start of the show. Shout out to Obi. And it's funny, the night before, Tuesday night, they lose to the Knicks, the Pacers. That was Tuesday night at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And I know it's tough because Obi got backdoored a bunch. Obi was falling for, as Mike Wells would say from Beverly Hills Cop, the proverbial banana in the tailpipe, often with Josh Hart trying to defend him. But last night, let's just face it, and shout out to my mom, who's the biggest Obi Toppin fan, or as she likes to put it, Obi Tappin, out there. Obi saved this team's ass from me absolutely setting it on fire today. There's not a great deal to write home about. This is really damned if you do and really, really damned if you don't. You know what I mean? That's what that game in Washington's about. It's kind of like watching Jordan Poole play. Like you at some point you go, wow, you know what? He's scoring and he can't be stopped. And then there's a point in time in the game where you go, well, I'm glad he's who he is because he's going to keep on shooting even when that damn thing's not going in. That is his MO. That's what you saw last night. But this team was so close to losing to the 9-win Wizards. Can you imagine the type of dialogue we would have today and tomorrow and next week leading up to Thursday? So here's my hope, and I'll get back to Obi in a second, for example. Here's my hope. If there is a team, and I'm hoping this is accurate, because I don't want to know if it's something different. I don't want to know if it's just a discombobulated roller coaster wanting to ride crew that your stars will, poof, disappear at a moment's notice. Seriously, it's like stinking Star Trek. There's all of a sudden, poof, they're gone. Hey, they're back. Oh, they're gone. Hey, they're back. That's the stuff that gets you beat, that gets you ousted in the postseason. That's the stuff that doesn't get you past the good teams. And there is no doubt that the focus is always going to be on Tyrese Haliburton. You just simply either A, cannot disappear as much as he does, B, you cannot so easily be erased. Well, you know what they were doing? They were putting two guys on him. Hey, they were switching defenders. So what? So what? We live in a world where all that is done. You have to find a way to get over. If you're an elite level player, if you're a max out contract, you can't, again, be so easily taken away. Well, they were switching defenders. You know how that happens all the time. All the time. So we'll start right there, and that is the damnedest of the truth. I like Tyrese Haliburton as much as I do anybody else, and you know how much I love the personnel on this team, but they just have guys that simply put for long periods of time, and you could be going really well. Like, I thought Pascal Siakam disappeared last night. I go, man, you're going so well, and look at this guy. He's an all-star, and it's great, and then poof, he's gone. You can't find anything. So here's what I want you to do, and I know Siakam can't because he's going to venture out to San Francisco for All-Star Weekend, and that's great. But selfishly put, I am so incredibly glad that most of this team can hang out and, without a better description of it, go grab themselves a significant nap. Go get a weeks-long nap. Hang out, chill out, and rest. Because I want that to be the issue. I don't want the issue to be the discombobulation of a group that they're just not assembled correctly, and you have too many guys that just, like that, either go away or can be taken away. So, go get yourself some rest, wherever it might be. If you stay here, none of those guys are staying here. I mean, hell, most of us, we go on vacation. Yeah, I've decided to stay. I haven't been on vacation, and I used to go every summer to Cape San Blas. I don't think I've been in 8 years now. 8 years. I so need a vacation. That's why I'm trying to cobble together for all of us a vacation with our friends from AAA. That's why I am pointing the finger and putting the onus on Matt Godbout right now to put something significant together for us all because, I mean, hell, we all need it. But nowadays, most of us just say, yeah, you know what, I just decided to stay. And then you inevitably end up doing stuff, right? It's not like you're resting, you're doing stuff. So this team needs to get away. This team needs to rest in whatever capacity they can recharge the bats. Kind of like Apollo 13. Yeah, can you reverse it some way? We're going to go ahead. I'm going to go put myself in the limb and figure out exactly how this team can have recharged batteries, enough power for re-entry here. Because re-entry is going to be serious for them coming up next Thursday. You have 4 games at home right out of the All-Star break. You've got Memphis in there in the mix. You've got the Creamy Nougats in there in the mix. And then all the jacking around, all the figuring out, all the, oh, well, wait a minute, there's still a long season. There's a lot of time to go. All that dialogue has to go away. Memphis, the Clippers, the Nuggets, and the Raptors. Actually, when you look at it, they have 6 of 7 at home. I'm going to tell you what, you got to remember how you would do your little brother? Anybody out there I don't, so I don't know. I just did that to other dudes who were soft. You know how or had it done to me, like the class of 83, it was always weird to me, right? I stopped riding the bus when I was a freshman because some of my older friends, or I should say some of my friends in my class that got held back were getting their licenses. So I stopped riding the bus then. But for some reason, the class of 83, all these hillbilly dudes always wanted to put me in a headlock, right? And then turn their class rings around and hit me on the head with it. I never understood that, right? I always thought, hey, what are you doing that to me for? I'm like 6 years younger than you. And in some cases, like 8 years younger than you. Those have been held back multiple times. But you look at it in terms of getting your right? You get your license and you're off the bus. That's me. I was off the bus as a freshman. I never understood why these dudes all rode the bus until they were seniors. I never understood that part of it. But you've got to get on board here. You've got to make it happen because there is no more excuses. We're going to be without excuses after the All-Star break. I'm not going to sit here and tell you this team is tired. This team is worn out. No more excuses. They've been put together in the fashion in which I think most of us want. At least I know I do, so I guess I speak for all of us here. They've been put together in a way that we want. And somebody mentioned to me last night, I don't like it because this team's not going to win a championship. This team hasn't won a championship since the 70s in the ABA. Most of you out there were not born when this team won a championship. Most of you do not even recollect when this team won a championship. It was in the ABA. And all you know about the ABA is, well, wait a minute, didn't they have the red, white, and blue ball? That's about it. Hey, I watched semi-pro. That's it. So that's the last time this team, this organization won a championship. But you're competing for something more. You're seeing if you can equate what you did a year ago. You're seeing if you can even get further. And obviously they go to the Eastern Conference Finals. And that's what is being ready for the now and also being built for the longer-term future is all about. And that is what is so important about having this size of a market of a team be able to do that. Your judgment, I'm sorry, has to be more correct than anybody else. The judgment of Kevin Pritchard, the judgment of Chad Buchanan. Like Rob Pelinka sits in his glass palace out in Southern California, and you can pick and choose, and you can wait for some numbnut to say, hey, we've got this 25-year-old staple of greatness here, but we think he's a little bit too fat. So we're going to trade him to you guys. And by the way, you're the only call we're going to make. Can you imagine being in that position, the position of the LA Lakers, where people are just bending over backwards to make you better? How enjoyable would that be? No wonder they have so many damn fans. You just sit there and you wait for somebody to bow, to bend the knee. Hey, this guy's a little bit too fat. We're going to go ahead and take the guy that's always injured from you guys. We'll take the guy that's never available. Now, again, I would take fat over unavailable. I should say I'd take fat and talented and younger over unavailable. But that's just how it works. And I'm trying to outline the effect and just how good you have to be in terms of putting together a team and how right you have to be. You know, how many years did we go down the line with the Pacers? And this was still on Kevin Pritchard's watch as well. You know, the whole Goga drafts, for example, things like that. You know, how many drafts were they drafted in, you know, the middle teens or somewhere where it was a swing and a miss? Now you have to be right. You have to be right about your picks. You have to be right about maneuvering around. Think about right now if you were stuck with DeAndre Ayton and that contract, and then a guy that, yeah, you know what, I feel like playing tonight, and other nights I don't. So you have to be smarter than everybody else. You have to work harder than everybody else. It's like Kingpin. Yeah, Woody Harrelson thought Randy Quaid was a really good Amish bowler until he figured out, I think he was like bowling 15 frames because they always went a little bit further. The Pacers always have to go a little bit further to be at that level. Because you have teams like the Lakers that you don't have to do anything. You just look like Rob Lowe and run this organization, and hell, there we go. Here's your superstar, future Hall of Famer right here. Really for absolutely nothing because we believe he's a little bit overweight. And the Pacers have to be right. And much like anything else around here, we end up holding them to that level, to that standard, to that accountability. And it's completely fair. So no more excuses. You know, no more they're tired. No more they need more juice. They're a little bit out of gas. Hey, they had to go to Paris, and then they had to go out west. All this stuff, and it sounds like a regurgitation of crap I've said for like 2 weeks. No more of that. Now it's, all right, you may not be championship form, because I don't believe they're a championship contender, but I do believe that they're valued as a contender, and I believe that they can grow into that level of a contender. But you can't moonwalk. You can't backpedal. I mean, it's one thing not to reach the Eastern Conference Finals because, believe me, it's going to be much more difficult this year than it was a year ago because they were fortunate. You take advantage of good fortune. Everybody does. And they were fortunate. You know, getting teams that were banged up, getting teams that didn't have their stars or whatever, but they still advanced to the Eastern Conference Finals. This team could be a hell of a lot better and still not advance to the Eastern Conference Finals with the makeup and the way that it looks today. So, we are going to hold them to the standard of play, though. I mean, even if you lose to the Knicks or you lose to the Bucks, I am going to value their standard of play. And last night was junk. And really, let's face it, since they've returned from Paris, for the most part, it's been junk. Since the calendar switched from January 2025 to February 2025, it's been junk. They've been able, and good fortune is a part of it, to survive some of it. They survived last week with the Jazz. They survived last week, a week ago, later on tonight, against the Clippers. But when you get to really good teams, they're not going to allow you to get up off the mat. So you can't let it happen. So when you're going on break here for the NBA All-Star Weekend, wherever you're going, make sure you mix in a great deal of sleep and rest because you are going to be held accountable to how you look upon return. As much as I like you, as much as I like everybody that put you together, and as much as I want to see them win, to see them succeed, we're going to hold you accountable. We'll discuss that if you like. And again, a shout-out to Obi. I thought Obi was great. As bad as everybody wanted to take Obi to the woodshed on Tuesday night because Josh Hart backdoored him like it was 1965 running somebody's offense, he was really good last night, and he saved their ass. He did. He saved their ass from massive embarrassment, and let's call it what it is. If you lose, I don't care where it is, on the road in Washington, especially here if you lose, if you're playing in Springville, Indiana, and you lose to the Washington Wizards, that's an embarrassment. I'm going to tell you what. Jordan Poole last night, maybe the most significant part of that win for the Pacers in overtime. And you're going to laugh about this. You'll giggle a little bit, but it will allow you to think about it as you're giggling, and then you'll further understand. Jordan Poole and 42 points, that was an asset last night. You're going to go, well, wait a minute. How was that an asset? Because that dude was not going to relinquish the basketball. Meaning, how many times have you said this in the past? That guy's going to shoot them out of it. That guy's going to shoot them to a loss. He basically shot them to a loss last night. You could see that one coming a mile away. They just had to survive what I felt was themselves. And here was most of the problem. 3-point shooting. Washington does not shoot the ball well. And this is what I talk about with IU that drives me absolutely insane. It doesn't matter if you're not shooting it well. It doesn't matter if you look at the scouting report or the game plan, and, well, this guy is just a 36% shooter from distance. If they are hitting it in that game, for God's sake, would you close somebody out? Would you put up a hand? Listen, if you even had to follow into what I used to do all the time, if you act like you're going to hit him in the nuts when you're closing out, whatever. Just don't allow them to step into consistent, clean looks. That is what? What word do you recognize from that? Recognition. That is something with this IU basketball team that's driven me nuts this season, the lack of recognition. It doesn't have to come off the scouting report. It doesn't have to come off the tape that you watched of the game 2 weeks ago. What matters is that stinking moment. And these guys, for whatever reason last night, were stroking the three. You got to close them out. You can't half-ass your closeout. How many times, and this should be a layup in the NBA, when you're allowed to step into a jump shot, step into a three-pointer, why so often do we say the easiest shot in the NBA is going to be off the offensive glass? Because you're going to get a kick out and somebody's going to step into a three. And for these guys, and I mean most of these guys, that's a layup. And I'm not even talking about the offensive glass or the rebounding in general last night. I'm talking about three-point shooting recognition. Who's hot in the moment recognition. You have to be better than that. These guys last night struggled in that capacity, and that was one of the big reasons why they found themselves down 19 and once again had to dig out of a substantial hole. Just mix in a little bit of recognition. I'm not suggesting that Rick Carlisle and his staff, a very good, very accomplished staff, are saying the same thing, but damn. It's one thing to say it, but it also has to translate into execution. That's driving me nuts last night. These guys were all getting wide open looks. And I know, again, you've studied the scouting report, and they don't historically this season shoot it well. But, man, it does not matter in the moment. You guys know this. In all forms of life, when you're feeling good at that moment, it doesn't really matter. You don't necessarily have to be who you normally are. You can be somebody else for that moment. Whether it's viewed as an out-of-body experience, let's just face it, especially back in the 1990s, what do we call that? We called that being in a zone. And you got to do something to break out of the zone. And everybody giggles about my, fake ball tapping closeouts, but there's nothing quicker, playing against a dude that's going to get him out of his zone than your fake ball tapping on a closeout. Because we all, listen, dudes, we're all protective of that area right there. I'm not suggesting they do that, but I am suggesting they recognize what's going on at that moment and not just simply revert back to somebody during the season. I will say this, Jordan Poole reverted back to what he has been, not just this season, but historically in his career. He is going to be good enough to get you there, but he's also going to be good enough to get you beat. And he had 42 points last night. He was good enough to get you beat. But a shout-out to Obi Toppin and a shout-out to Benedict Mathurin. I always wondered why people wanted to trade Benedict Mathurin. I've never really understood that. Now, he's a guy that will go get it. He will drive you nuts sometimes. I agree. But you have to have a guy that goes to get it, and you have to have a guy that drives you nuts. That's a rite of passage. That's how you get good. Somebody always has that wild card. You tell me who doesn't have that wild card. Everybody. Every successful team has it. Well, we got to hold that guy down. He's the guy where everybody talks about how every other team would want him, and you hate him when he's on another team, but you would love him if you're a teammate or he's on your squad. A quick break, we'll come back. Dustin Dopirak discusses that coming up at the bottom of the hour. We'll talk about the All-Star break, and we'll talk about coming back. The expectations. I will give them this at 30-23. Did you expect them to be better at the All-Star break or worse? And I will also give them this. They have survived a lot. They don't look like, at times, the team that most of the time they've represented. The problem that you have, and we have this, Scott Johnston puts this together, right? You see this, James? This is on camera right here. This is like the Pacers schedule. If you guys notice here, the yellow would be wins, and the blue is losses. This is one hell of a roller coaster ride. This team is very fortunate to be 7 games over 500. This is a roller coaster ride. A lot of blue right there. Roller coaster ride. Dustin Dopirak, star, covers the Pacers, bottom of the hour. Rob Blackman, voice of the Boilermakers. Boilermakers in the midst of 3 games, of which they already lost on Tuesday night to Michigan, Wisconsin coming up this weekend, and then at Michigan State. We'll talk to Rob about the state of the Boilermakers coming up at the top of the hour. Kyle Neddenriep of the Star. So a little conference change going on and some other stuff regarding high school basketball, whether it's boys or girls, we'll get into with Kyle at 4:30 and Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59. I was just kind of joking about Aaron Rodgers. Is there anybody out there that thinks, you know what, why are you joking? There's nobody out there that says, yeah, they should, right? Chappell on that in the 5 o'clock hour. James, we have concert tickets to give away, right? I want the 80s. I want my 80s. Rick Springfield, the headliner of that. Fisher's Event Center. And Doobie Brothers. Ruoff Music Center in September. Great show with the Coral Reefer Band. A couple of different opportunities for you to win. Hey, by the way, too, I will remind you tomorrow is going to be a damn big day. I mean, huge. I know it's Valentine's Day. All you dudes out there are scuffling around. Hey, here's some nerds. These are nerds in shape of hearts. Good idea, dudes. When's the last time you gave your sweetheart nerds in the shape of hearts? That may not win her over effectively. I'll tell you what, if it does, though, shout out to you because you probably got the right one. So Valentine's Day is going to be more than just what it's normally known for. A rare bourbon bottle raffle, 50 bottles in all with us coming up tomorrow. Me, Brent Halverson, the girls, and more. I shall explain why you got to join us in Greenwood at Big Red Liquors absolutely tomorrow. The stream, the app, HD Radio, the AAA membership lounge via YouTube Live. Believe me, I got a lot more here. We're just getting started. It's a busy Thursday. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, welcome back. We've got tickets to give away. I shall explain. Tomorrow's a big day. You like bourbon? How many of you dig bourbon, especially rare bottles of bourbon on Valentine's Day? If you've not celebrated Valentine's Day by winning a raffle for a rare bourbon, then I don't know where you've been. Cast Strength, Big Red Liquors tomorrow. Me, Brent Holverson. I have heard that the girls will join. I believe Lindsay Monroe of Channel 13. And hey, hold on. This may be breaking news. The Princess of Ice Cream evidently is going to grace us with her presence coming up tomorrow, James. That's a big deal right there. Hagen called last night. See, everybody wants to be in when you're talking about rare bourbons on Valentine's Day. I mean, let's face it, too. You need a rare bourbon on Valentine's Day because that is probably the reason why on Valentine's Day you're still with your significant other. It's necessary, that rare bourbon at a high level. Tomorrow beginning at 3, you have to be there when we draw for the winners at 5. You can sign up all day long beginning at 9 a.m. Just like slide in there and sign up, but you got to be there at 5. So don't jack around with this, all right? I want you guys, I don't know exactly the names, but you know the names. You know that I am always going to talk up Heaven Hill Distillery. Bottle and Bond Heaven Hill Distillery is going to be there. You love that already. Larceny, Elijah Craig. But I believe there may be some Pappy lurking as well. We shall see. Cast Strength Big Red Liquors tomorrow. That's US 31 and Fry Road down in Greenwood. It is going to be a blast. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, he covers the Pacers for the Indianapolis Star. I'm assuming, much like the Pacers right now, everybody but Pascal Siakam. He's going to take a bit of a break as well. Dustin Dopirak joins us. So you're getting out of Dodge here, or are you staying in town?
I mean, I'm staying in town. Yeah, definitely not going to San Francisco.
Why do we always have to have a staycation when everybody else? You know, all these other dudes are going to the Caribbean and wherever to recharge the bats, and we all have to stay around here. Why is that?
Finances.
Is that it? That's a good damn reason right there. Yeah.
To pull on February 15th. So yeah, just doing enough around town that I'll have plenty going on, doing some housework and stuff.
I made a point of this.
Day things too. So.
Oh yeah, I guess Valentine. What are you doing for Valentine's Day? Heart-shaped nerds.
I really should. Actually, I brought.
do you give away those hearts that say? Love you. Like, I feature Kurt Signetti. Kurt Signetti gives away candy hearts that say Google me.
He probably does.
Right? Probably. But do you give away hearts that said hug me or something like that?
I'll probably go get a package for my wife. She's down in Bloomington today for some conference thing, so maybe I'll have those for her when she gets back.
Let me tell you this. I'm going to Bloomington tomorrow at 11:30. I'm going to play a little pickup basketball at the Hyper and then come up here and give away rare bottles of bourbon on the radio. How about that? Is that a day?
That sounds like a day. That sounds like a day, man. You're winning for sure.
That is celebrating Valentine's Day in a big way. I did say this a little bit earlier regarding this Pacer team. All right. I'll go ahead and walk down to the break here, and everybody but Siakam get a big-time nap and then get back together on Thursday. 4 games at home in that stretch, starting with Memphis next Thursday. And then after that, I'll be damned, there are no more excuses. I'm not going to talk about this team is tired, this team has no juice. No more excuses for they won, and that's great in overtime, but no excuses for the majority of the game like last night, looking in the fashion in which they did. Would you agree?
I mean, yeah, it's bad. I mean, I would obviously more to the point of no excuses. Like you're not going to get away with that. Basically, if you're playing anybody else. They were really fortunate, frankly, not just playing anybody else, but if you don't get, the best game of Obi Toppin's Pacer career, you lose that game. Obi just buoyed them, and then Ben Mathurin helped him buoy them, and they were very close to losing an absolutely embarrassing game to the Wizards, and obviously it would have been just one game, and it's right before the break, and they do look tired, but you got no business. You still have to. You still can't lose that thing right before the break. You're playing one of the worst teams there is. And if you consistently play that bad, obviously you're going to lose a whole bunch of games. And so, whether you're excusing it or not, they're going, if you go out and play like that against Memphis, LA, and Denver, you're going to lose 3 in a row. No doubt about it. Those teams are taking advantage of you in that case. But yeah, obviously there's clearly been Really just since February, just the beginning of February, that entire West Coast road trip, just legs seem to be gone. And, I guess in some ways it's impressive they pulled off the wins they did, especially against the Clippers. I think was the one that you really beat a good team doing that. You beat two bad teams you were coming back from to beat Utah and Washington's, the two worst teams in the respective conference, but in the middle beating the Clippers at their place was kind of impressive. But all the same, it just wasn't good. It hasn't been good basketball since the beginning of February, and it does seem like they're gassed. It does seem like they have been gassed. And then, but to your point, if they still look like that on February 20th after they've had the 8 days off, then, there's going to be a bunch of games they lose down the stretch.
It's Dustin Dopirak of the Stars of the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. It was interesting. Jeremiah Johnson of Pacers TV and I kind of had this back and forth where he thought it was juice. And I'm okay. I want to listen to that excuse because I don't know if I want to know or if we want to know that it might be more than that. It might be a level of discombobulation or just not going to play as well in a lot of areas in which we saw a year ago. And really the focus starts with this group, does it not, with their elite level paid player, Tyrese Haliburton.
Yeah, he's been okay at best on his good days and invisible on his worst. And so, obviously to get anywhere near where they were functioning as an offense last year, he's got to be closer to what he was then. Even on his worst days, he was better than he is on his worst days, probably. I guess the first 25 games of the season, you saw it consistently worse. But, like last year, he had some bad days in there. There were definitely some slumps, I think, really around late February into March. I remember, it was right after the break. He went through a stretch where he couldn't make a shot, and kind of pulled out of it, and in part, aided by Buddy Hield letting him use his court in Dallas to kind of shoot his way out of it while they were on the road. But yeah, it's just you just haven't seen a really good game from him lately. And you've had a couple where he just hasn't done much, where he sort of let somebody, like somebody like Tamani Kamara wants to take him out of the game. He kind of just stands back and lets everybody operate. But yeah, if they've got to dial it up, and when it comes to really beating somebody, they've got to step their game up. I guess in fairness, he did hit some big shots last night when they needed him to come back. Obviously hit the one to put him up with, it's up 3 with like a couple minutes to go. Hit 2 big threes down that stretch. Ended up with 20 and 8, and that's not a bad night for him. But those have been fewer and further between than they ought to be. He's still been around 15, 16 a game. But you need some 25-point, 30-point nights from him if you're really going to make a push for this and you're going to win some of the games you have to down the stretch. They've got a lot of winnable ones, and they're obviously done with Boston and the Knicks, and that's helpful. But they're going to face almost every Western Conference contender, basically down the last 29 games or whatever is left in the season. They're going to have to get some wins against some really good teams, and to do that, they're going to need a much better version of Tyrese Haliburton than they've been getting.
Hey, Dustin, all elite-level players get the same thing. They get multi-defenders thrown at them, a lot of double teams thrown at them, and they're overcoming that. The thing that really gets to me about Tyrese is that he is so easily taken away. He is so easily erased. When you're paid and when you're the guy at that level, you cannot be that easily taken away. So what is it about this situation? I understand deferring, and taking advantage of matchups with others, but you're the guy for the reason, and you just, to me, cannot be that easily erased.
I would agree, but the other point about this is, and I always say this, at the end of the day, for him to take a step up as a player, for him to get into a higher echelon, he needs to make a physical transformation. Because he's not built to just say, all right, I don't care what you're going to do to me, I'm getting 25 tonight. He's just going to will his way into the lane like a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander can do, like a Jalen Brunson can do, and he could just bounce off bodies and hit mid-range jumpers, and I either hit him or draw fouls, and that's not how he's built. He doesn't get those calls, and in part because he gets pushed around. I mean, he's very easily physically pushed around still. And if he's going to get to be that guy, he needs to put muscle on. And so it's like, I mean, the money doesn't make you that. Like, you have to physically transform. You don't magically get 15, 20 pounds of muscle by getting $250 million. You got to turn it into something. There's got to be, and in fairness to him, he's played international basketball the last 2 years. So that's cost him some time, but I mean, he needs, I think he really needs this offseason, because if he wants to become that guy, it's a lot easier to take somebody out. And now obviously his passing ability, his vision, allows him to make up for that in some respects, that he's still getting the assists if he's not getting the points, or he is working somebody else, and there is still value to that, the fact that he's orchestrating everything, even if he's not getting the buckets. But to your point, it's still a lot of money to pay somebody that every once in a while is going to get you 3-5 points if somebody wants to just dedicate a defender to him. You need, you could use him being more like a Brunson or somebody like that can just will himself to buckets, and that requires a physical transformation. It's just the way he's built. He's not going to be able to just will himself into the lane and score through contact, as much as some other guys can. I mean, I think he should take more shots. I think he should trust himself to drive more and hit more floaters and go to the rim more. I think there's still a few occasions where he's passing up opportunities, but he's still just, the opportunities aren't the same for somebody like him than there are for somebody like, somebody that's more just muscled up point guard or whatever, that can get in there and just decide to get his.
Dustin Dopirak of the Stars on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline covers the Pacers. Final thing, and then I'll cut you loose and you can go off for that nap, which I think most of the Pacers need up until next Thursday. Benedict Mathurin, according to his coach, Rick Carlisle, better suited for the team to be coming off the bench and starting Aaron Nesmith. We saw it once again last night, his level of importance to go out there and get them baskets when they need baskets. So what is the solution here? Does it matter? Is there a better situation off the bench or as a starter? What do you think between he and Nesmith and the way that thing moves forward here?
Yeah, I have a lot of questions about this. I didn't. It was also my wife's birthday on Tuesday, so I didn't cover that game, and so that's the first game Nesmith was back, and I have a lot of questions about how this is going forward, especially because they have spent so much time on the project of making Benedict Mathurin fit into the starting lineup, and really alter his game so that it fits. So he's making quicker decisions. He's not driving into crowds. It's basically like get the ball, either drive a shooter to move it and do it fast, and that sort of thing. And the defense and rebounding has to be better regardless, regardless of what situation he's in. And so obviously whatever he gets out of that is better. But it's like, if you're moving him back to the bench, are you basically saying everything that you've been trying to learn over the last couple months to fit in with the starting lineup, forget that and go back to getting yours? I mean, like, what exactly is the plan for him going forward? What is he supposed to retain and what is he not supposed to retain? Is he supposed to go back to being a guy that just can go get buckets and just look that way as just to go attack and kill and score? And so I'm very interested in terms of how that looks, because it seems like they were. And it's one thing for the short term, but it matters more for the long term. It's saying, okay, how much are you going to pay to extend a guy who you think is your sixth man? But how much more would you pay if he's going to be your starting three man? Well, how do you view this exactly? So I think there's a lot of questions about that. And again, it seemed like there was a plan to say, all right, you're working on Ben Mathurin to make sure that he fits this hyperactive, balls popping all over the place, quick decision, the ball doesn't stick kind of offense, and he was being molded into being that guy. And then if you move him back on the bench and say, actually, we need somebody to go create and score, you're basically saying, okay, we trust your old habits. We trust your old, in this role. So who is he supposed to be for you? And I think that's an interesting question going forward of how you handle that when you've spent so much time trying to develop into this. I mean, I think either guy can work as the starter. I think they both bring different things. Obviously, Nesmith is more natural, ball mover, catch and shoot guy who doesn't really need the ball in his hand a whole lot. And when he's at his best, can be a really good defender. I mean, I think obviously you're still not seeing him back, quite quite all there. I don't think he's still hurt or anything like that, but it's just getting his wind all the way back, getting his energy, his explosiveness all the way back. I just don't think that's there yet because he did miss 35 games. So, when he's good, he's one of your best two defenders. And so he can do a lot of things for you. So I don't know if they're better or worse, and I certainly understand the argument for saying, hey, Matherin's a more explosive scorer. It fits to have somebody like that on the second unit when you already have Haliburton, Siakam, and Turner on the first unit can get you buckets. But it's like as you're developing this guy long term, what's the message that he's supposed to take out of this at this point? Who do you really want him to be, and what does that mean for how you're investing in him going forward? Because I think those are pretty serious questions for what their future looks like.
That's Dustin Dopirak right there. The Star covers the Pacers. He goes on a bit of a vacation hiatus now in preparation for the return after the All-Star break. He's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Dustin, enjoy that time off. We'll catch up again next week.
Will do, man. Sounds great.
Dustin Dopirak of the Star on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Mitchell, Indiana's own, a former Blue Jacket. Chase Briscoe on the pole for the Daytona 500 coming up on Sunday. The duels, including Elio Castroneves, coming up later on tonight. Discussion, Rob Blackman, top of the hour. Kyle Neddenriep still on the way, and Mike Chappell, too. Don't go anywhere. Also, your chance to win a lot of stuff and a reason to join me tomorrow. I'll tell you about that coming up next.
Did anybody knock anymore?
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, crank this up, James. Anybody out there a member of Generation X? Or let's just say you're cool, like I am. What does this song immediately remind you of? James is way too young and has zero recollection. I get it. I'm not even going to ask. The 40th anniversary of Vision Quest. Who's with me on this? It is certainly one of the greatest sports-related films of all time, but let's just face it. I mean, you get wrestling and you get Matthew Modine, in this case, climbing the pegboard in the wrestling room. He's got a best friend named Cooch. I always wanted my nickname to be Cooch, and it never was. And maybe the best part about it, it was a young man's dream. James, I was 15 years of age when this movie was released 40 years ago. And I, much like Matthew Modine, Loudon Swain, and Vision Quest, had crossed my fingers in hope that at some point in my life, a 21-year-old smoking-ass hot drifter would move in to the basement of my house. Never happened. Never, ever happened. I waited and waited and waited. Where's the 22-year-old smoke show that's going to move into my basement because she simply has nowhere else to go? Washes her belongings right there. You got to see it right on top of the laundry basket. All of that. Never happened. Of course, I also never climbed the pegboard either. Yeah, 40 years of Vision Quest. I have. And this has not happened very often. I have never had anybody said, you know what, that Vision Quest really sucks. I don't like it. You know, normally there's always some sort of debate that you have to have. Well, that sucks. Well, that's great. And we have them all the time here. Nobody has ever said Vision Quest sucks. I cannot be the only one that wanted the nickname Cooch back. There's no way. I mean, that just had such a broad stroke of greatness right there.
Well, it's never too late. We can change your name right now.
You know who Cooch was, right? Cooch was Jake Ryan, the actor who is like incredibly old now. I think 65. He just had a birthday. Michael Schoeffling, the actor, who is now a carpenter, a woodworker. He builds furniture somewhere in Pennsylvania. He was once Jake Ryan in 16 Candles, and also known as Cooch in the 1985 Harold Becker classic Vision Quest. And I don't even know what the hell's happened to Linda Fiorentino, but man, she was smoking hot, and she moved right there in Loudon Swain's basement, and I could not have been more jealous. Oh, wait a minute. Hey, I'm living in a divorced family household, too. My mom would say, yeah, go ahead and move in. Go ahead and get right there down in the basement. And then walk around in your underwear and all that. Never happened. Jim McCann writes this in Southern California. Is it possible the giant chapstick in those shorts was the cause of your trouble with the senior class bus riders? Unfortunately, Jim McCann, I don't know if anybody ever described it as the giant chapstick, which is funny. JMV, my biggest issue with the team being gassed is that they've done this to themselves, right? Like they're so bad on defense that they have to full court press. I want to stop right there, though. Indy Braves, you got to keep in mind, Drew, this team was like top 5 midway through January defensively. Remember, this was one of, in terms of recent memory, the larger sports arousals that I have accomplished. When Alex Golden had sent out on setting the pace in his social media that the Pacers were top 5 in defense, I simply could not believe it. Sometimes it's about understanding, and you do have to dig a little bit deeper. And these guys way too easily, especially during this stretch, can be taken away. And that is also going with your elite level leader. That can't happen. Thank you, Drew, for that. Quick break. We'll come back. Rob Blackman of the Boilermaker Radio Network, a very important stretch for the basketball Boilers. The Voice joins us coming up on the other side. Kyle Neddenriep, some news today regarding high school basketball, into that. And Mike Chappell will debunk everybody's theory that Aaron Rodgers is next up to come off the bench as a backup quarterback for the Colts, as if he needs to do that. We'll put him on the spot in the 5 o'clock hour to do it anywhere. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. Don't go away.
waiting.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Hey, tomorrow, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. It is a must-attend event. Are you ready for it? It is a live rare bottle raffle. 50 bottles of bourbon we're going to raffle with your chance to buy at 5 o'clock. Now, this is a Big Red Liquors cast strength location in Greenwood. That's US 31 and Fry Road. So you can enter all day long, but you got to be there at 5 tomorrow, meaning I want you to be there the entire day that we're there, from 3 until, hell, when do I have to knock off? Probably 3:20 or 6:20, I should say. 3:20 would be an incredibly short show. But me, Brent Holverson, our betting analyst from Heaven Hill Distillery, I think the ladies will be there tomorrow with us. Maybe Hagen. I say maybe because he called me at like 1 in the morning last night, and I evidently expected me to be up and answer his call, and I haven't heard from him today. Hey, Johnny, why aren't you up? It's 1 a.m. Well, I'm not a vampire like you, Hagen, for one. I guess I kind of am, but not as much. But a rare bourbon bottle auction, I should say not auction, raffle tomorrow. Got to be there at 5 o'clock, but you can enter all day long. This is a damn big day. This will be the most memorable Valentine's Day in your existence. Not a candy-shaped heart that said, hug me. Not a card that instead of sweet, they accidentally spelled it sweat, meaning, hey, you're a really sweat guy. Well, wait, I think you meant sweet. Or did you mean sweat? Nothing will match the fact that you could win this rare bourbon bottle raffle. 50 bottles in all. 5 o'clock tomorrow, you got to be there. You can enter all day long. Just make sure you're there with us. We start at 3 tomorrow down in Greenwood at Big Red Liquors on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. He is wishing he would be a part of that right now. I'm making him incredibly jealous. Rob Blackman is the voice of the Boilermakers who is with us. Level of jealousy right now, voice of the Boilermakers. Where is that for you?
As you were talking about this event, I was thinking to myself, all right, what if I called my wife and said, hey, I know we wanted to have dinner tomorrow night for Valentine's Day, but instead I'm going to hang out with JMV all afternoon and try to get in on a raffle to win a bottle of bourbon. How do you think that would go over in my house?
Let me tell you this. If you also mention, and we're going to sit around and sip, and my sips are rather large. I have gulps and not sips. We're going to sit around and sip all day long too. Does that change the dynamic where this is going at all? Because that's a difference maker right there.
I'm still sleeping in the doghouse there, big dog.
But man, you'll be feeling good. You'll be all hammered locked and feeling good, brother.
Yeah, I might need it as cold as it's been.
Oh, that is true. Well, we'll miss you tomorrow, I guess, then, because you have other things to do. So we're going out to dinner tomorrow night. Is that what we're doing? The same old, right?
Well, actually, I was fibbing on that. Luckily, my wife and I don't take this Valentine's thing very seriously, so and that doesn't hurt my feelings at all. It will be just another day in the Blackman household.
Just another day. John Cicada had a very 90s song called Just Another Day. That's Rob Blackman on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. So what do you think about my good friend Dusty May? I hear that you guys met.
We did, yeah. I had a great chance to say hi to him at the game in Mackey Arena back on January 24th. He came out early for the pregame warm-ups, and I dropped your name. Hope you're okay with that.
I am. He's a swell little fella, isn't he?
Cool guy, really enjoyed it. And again, it was a brief conversation. Obviously, he had much more important things on his plate than talking to me, but it was nice to shake his hand and talk with him for a little bit. And tell you what, hell of a basketball coach. He made some really good adjustments for that game against Purdue on Tuesday night up at their place. And you think about how badly Purdue had beaten them in that January game, and them for them those guys to come back and beat us on Tuesday night. That was pretty well done by he and his staff. Just a few of the adjustments they made, especially they went to zone there in the second half, which caught us a little bit off guard. I think I don't know if our coaches would admit to that, and they didn't play it very much. I think I read they played 9 or 10 possessions of zone, not very many. But it was just enough to kind of get us off kilter and allow them to get back in the game, and then they found a way to win. So, great guy and a great basketball coach, no doubt about that.
Here's Rob Blackman, voice of the Boilermakers on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. We'll talk about whiskey in that next matchup. Not whiskey or bourbon, but whiskey in that next matchup coming up in just a minute. I will say this. I had the feeling that it was more on that Friday night when the Boilers boat raced his team was because of how they played in the second half or how bad they played in the second half against Ohio State. But it was more to it than that. And for those that just thought it was a change of venue, it was a change of night, change of dynamic, what more was it besides throwing in some possessions, a handful of zones and things of that nature that they did the other night to end up squeaking out a win? Because you get shot-making ability as Braden Smith had on display. I don't care where you're playing. That is tough to overcome, and the Wolverines, by 2 points, ended up doing just that.
Yeah, and I would start with the fact Michigan did such a much better job of taking care of the ball that second time around. Just 11 turnovers for them on Tuesday night. And remember, they had 22 turnovers in that game at Mackey Arena. And the other thing, that game at West Lafayette, you said it, John. The fact that Purdue had just lost their previous home game to Ohio State had Purdue on edge. Just another reason for Michigan fans to hate Ohio State, right? The fact that Ohio State put Purdue on edge for that Michigan game. That game was 29-9 at the second media timeout, and it never got any closer. I mean, it was really a blowout from start to finish, and Michigan just was never in that game. And again, a big part of that is one, Purdue was on edge because they had lost a home game, and two, Michigan was doing such a poor job of taking care of the basketball. And what you saw Tuesday night was Michigan did a much better job of taking care of the ball, and I thought their game plan defensively was pretty solid in that. Even though Trey Kaufman-Renn and Braden Smith got theirs, really no one else got going for Purdue. I know Fletcher Lawyer in that game ended up with 15 points, but no one on the Purdue bench scored. All the points came from the starting five. So Michigan had a nice plan where they were basically, it looked like, hey, we know Braden Smith and Trey Kaufman-Renn are going to get theirs, but we're going to do our best to make sure no one else has a big night against us. And that's really what it came down to. I was looking at the numbers, Tuesday night when the game was over. Purdue only had 7 assists for the entire game. And that, a big reason for that is the way Michigan played Purdue. Michigan was bound and determined to make Purdue players, not named, Trey Kaufman-Renn and Braden Smith, just beat them in one-on-one situations. And Purdue wasn't able to do that, certainly not able to do it enough effectively. When you only have 7 turnovers on 30 made baskets, that obviously means you're not doing a really good job of sharing the ball. So just, again, a really, really good job, really good piece of coaching by Dusty May and his staff, and they were ready for round 2, and a tip of the cap to them because I was really impressed with how they played on Tuesday night.
Braden Smith, and I mentioned, Rob, that shot-making ability, as to what level, not even so much as you've seen from him, but it was so impressive right up to the end. How much did that impress you as you were going over the play-by-play and watching him do that?
Well, yeah, his last 3 shots, and of course the third one did not go in, but all 3 were pretty incredible. The fact that not only here's the thing, and you watched the game, it was obvious at that juncture of the game, Purdue needed threes, right? So you think, well, how hard can it be? We're going to guard the 3-point line. Well, Michigan was guarding a 3-point line. It didn't matter. Braden Smith still got off 3 threes, and all 3 were quality looks, quite frankly, even though they knew what was coming. That's how talented that guy is. Even when you know what's coming, you still can't find a way to stop it. So that was what was so impressive to me. But we have seen that, John, especially here in the last 2 weeks maybe or so, where the situation has presented itself where Purdue has needed him to be a score first point guard, which isn't always the case. But there have been situations. I think back to that game at Iowa, late in the first half. Trey Kaufman-Renn on the bench in foul trouble, and Braden needed to become a score first point guard, and he did. Made a huge 3 right at the end of the first half that tied the game going into halftime. So we have seen that from him. We saw it in the game against Michigan Tuesday night. The beauty of Braden Smith, and I come to appreciate him a little bit more each and every time I watch him. He just simply gives you what the team needs. If you need a guy to score a bunch of points, fine. He'll score a bunch of points. You need him to be more of a facilitator, he's more of a facilitator. You need him to be a lockdown guy defensively, then that's what he'll do. He literally just does whatever the team needs in that particular juncture of the game. And even more impressive, it's not like someone has to tell him, hey, Braden, we really need you to step it up scoring-wise here. He just has that feel for the game that, okay, this is what this team needs right now, so this is what I'm going to do to help us have success. So it's been fun to watch. I tell you what, man, there's a lot of pressure on a guy when you start the season as the preseason Big Ten Player of the Year. And there are guys over the years, even Purdue players, that haven't been able to live up to that pressure and those expectations. But he seems to have had no problem living up to the expectations, at least at this point in the season.
The voice of the Boilermakers, Rob Blackman, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline right now. It is Purdue and Wisconsin coming up on Saturday at 1 o'clock at Mackey Arena in West Lafayette. So who gets the nudge right now, Big Ten Player of the Year? Braden or Trey Kaufman-Wren?
I think Braden, and I think simply because I try to put myself in the minds of those who vote on these kinds of things. And
good luck with that, by the way. Good luck.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can make it back.
But I do think if you have a guy who, as I mentioned, is the preseason Big Ten Player of the Year, and that was the easy pick because he was the only first-team All Big Ten guy coming back from last year. So it's kind of an easy pick. Well, yeah, we'll make him preseason Player of the Year. He's the only first-teamer that's coming back in the league. But when that expectation is put on you right out of the get-go, and then you're able to still put up the kind of numbers that he's put up, I'd have a tough time not seeing him voted as the the postseason Player of the Year. But I would also say this: I mean, this baby ain't over quite yet here, John. We still have a few games to go, 6 games as a matter of fact for Purdue. So I suppose it could go sideways on Purdue here down the stretch. I certainly hope that doesn't happen, but. If you had to cast your vote right now, this very instant, I'd say Braden Smith's the winner.
If I were going to bring up Cam Heide and say, 17 minutes, 2 shots, both missed threes, come on, man. Would that be accurate? Because to me, he's too talented to just shoot a couple of threes. I know 17 minutes, and I know he's not a huge focal point offensively, but damn.
Well, he shot, he was mid-40s, upper 40s, most all of last season, three-point shooting. And if you look at his three-point numbers this year, in just Big Ten games, we'll just keep it to Big Ten competition, he's shooting under 15% from three. I mean, so that's quite a dip. Obviously, you're in the upper 40s to 15% the very next season. What I would like to see Cam do, if anyone would ask my opinion, and maybe that's what you're doing here.
I am.
I'd love to see him just be more aggressive driving the ball.
That's
basket.
exactly what I'm saying. To put up threes that you're not shooting well this season, come on, man, that's not enough.
And he's certainly athletic enough to do it. And the really interesting point, his numbers inside of the arc, 2-point shooting, like 71, 72%. So he's obviously a pretty accurate shooter inside of that 3-point arc. So I would love to see him just, be more aggressive, driving the ball to the basket. Obviously, the percentages say that that's going to be a better shot for you, at least at this stage of the season. I'm with you. I would like to see that. But, look, I'd also like – I'm talking about, Cam's poor 3-point shooting. I really would like to see this team as a whole have their 3-point shooting come back around a little bit here. It's at 35% right now in the Big Ten games. And if you'll remember last year, John, Purdue was second best in the country in 3-point percentage, right at just under 40%. If that number could get back anywhere close to where it was last year, Purdue could really be in a position to do some damage here come these last 6 games of the regular season and then the postseason.
They have 3 wheels right now offensively that you can count on. Most games, certainly. They need a 4th consistently. Is anybody anywhere in the general vicinity able to step up and be that here relatively soon?
It sure feels like C.J. Cox is taking the proper steps to be that guy, just really based on what he's been doing as of late. 7 points in that game on Tuesday night against Michigan on 6 shots. I think I'm fair in saying that the coaching staff wouldn't mind if he got a little bit more aggressive offensively. He had 11 points in that first game against Michigan back in January. And he's had some breakout games. I mean, he had 23 points in the game earlier in the year against Nebraska. I just from what kind of watching, you know how it is, how a team evolves, right, from November to here we are in February, and guys take on different roles, and there are some guys you don't know exactly what you're going to get from them, and then by about mid-February you get it figured out. I think C.J. Cox is getting it figured out, and I do think in the perfect world it would be him. Just again the way he's played as of late. I know he's a true freshman. But he just seems to have that ability, that uncanny ability to score the ball when needed. So I would say if you had to pick a fourth one, if I'm saying, hey, here's a guy I think is going to could be the leader in the clubhouse to be that fourth scorer, I think right now C.J. Cox would get my vote.
1 o'clock on Saturday, the pregame show with Rob and Buckets. Should be interesting. Coming up from Mackey, Wisconsin is kind of like Kevin Hart. They're just always there, no matter what you do, to try to shake loose of it and not see it, not digest it. There it is, much like Kevin Hart. And again, this is a dangerous game. I mean, you look at home and you go, it's Mackey Arena, whatever. But this Wisconsin team can be a hell of a lot different, even if it is often a hell of a lot the same, if you know what I mean.
Oh, without question. And the crazy thing, and talk about giving coaching staffs credit, what about the job Greg Gard and his staff have done? I mean, they lose A.J. Storr. They lose Chucky Hepburn in the offseason. And I'm thinking to myself, how are these guys going to score? I mean, how's Wisconsin going to score? And the irony is they've had no problem in scoring. They're averaging 81 points a game. They're one of the highest scoring teams in the Big Ten. They're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the Big Ten. They're the best free throw shooting team in the Big Ten. They've had no problems actually scoring the ball. Now, John Tonje's helped a ton, the transfer from Colorado State. He's getting 18 points a game. But I would say the one thing that makes them the most dangerous, despite the fact they're so good offensively, John, is they have a whole bunch of old players. Kamari McGee, who plays off the bench as a senior. Tonje is a sixth-year player. Max Klesmit's a fifth-year player. Stephen Crow, their 7-footer, he's a fifth-year player. They have all these guys that have been there, done that. Even Carter Gilmore, who started his career as a walk-on and now plays a ton of men's for him. He's a fifth-year player. So they have tons of experienced guys who aren't going to be intimidated playing in Mackey Arena. So they can score the ball quite easily, and they have really experienced players. So I'm with you. Right now, why Wisconsin isn't getting talked about more, I'm not sure, because they're still a dark horse to win the Big Ten. I mean, they only have 4 Big Ten losses, and they control their own destiny here down in their final 7 because they still have Purdue, Michigan State on the schedule, Michigan on the schedule. They are certainly not out of the running to be a Big Ten regular season champ. As a matter of fact, I would argue they're right there in the race with everyone else. So yeah, this is a big one. This is a big one on Saturday because Wisconsin has a chance if they could steal on a Mackey. Not only do they keep themselves in a hunt for a Big Ten championship, but all of a sudden Purdue has 4 Big Ten losses and Wisconsin has a tiebreaker on Purdue. So yeah, this will be a big one.
Also, a lot of emotion. I saw this from Chris Foreman right before we started the show that there's going to be some honoring of Biggie and his family being present coming up this weekend. Right. So, it'll go way beyond that. There'll be a lot of emotion in that building on Saturday.
Yeah, and that'll be a special day, certainly, honoring Biggie and Caleb Swanigan, obviously, for those who may not know. I think most listening to your show would know who we're talking about, but one of the Purdue greats, an All-American who unfortunately died way too young after a short stint in the NBA. So, yeah, it's going to be – look, Mackey, as you know, is always revved up no matter what. This will be, I think, the 87th straight sellout on Saturday. So that building is always popping. But now you add in the emotions of honoring Caleb Swanigan. Yeah, that's it might take it to a whole new level. I think it will actually be taken to a whole new level on Saturday.
All right. So we're out with the elite level bourbon raffle tomorrow. You can't make it. Did you say that earlier, or did you completely rule that out on Valentine's Day?
No, rule that out on Valentine's Day. Thank you for the offer. You're very kind. You need to get up to my side of town. Get up here in Zionsville, and then, I won't have an excuse. You'll be right here in my backyard.
It's always kind of weird. Sometimes I feel like I'm in Zionsville, but people tell me I'm in Whitestown.
Well, yes, it can be. Within the last 5 years, it's become a very confusing line of demarcation.
It is. It's not only confusing, but people get outright pissed about it, too. They go, no, you're in Zion. No, you're in Whitestown. Wait, hey, okay. I'll cross the street.
Yes. Glad to know that even outsiders like yourself have to put up with that.
There's like no wall there or anything, right, or anything like that. Can you pass in and out of there without some kind of visa?
It's the invisible Iron Curtain. Yes, you never quite know what town you're in. Whether you're in the village of Zionsville, as we like to call it, the village of Zionsville. Or the town of Whitestown,
and much like what happens on the south side, Greenwood and Bargersville are trying to play the role. They've seen what goes on in Boone County in this case, in Hamilton County, and they want to play along like little brother as well. So they're going to have an argument about where Greenwood starts and ends and where Bargersville starts and ends. So we got to be right there too. We got you guys, everybody in North Siders put up roundabouts. You got to have a bunch of roundabouts. So that's what happens. Right there. We're kind of like Fox to ESPN. ESPN's got 19 debate shows. We got to have 20 debate shows.
Right. Understood. I'm right. I hear every word you're saying. I'm just nodding. You can't see me on the radio.
Oh, no. I would expect you to be nodding, buddy. I would, man. Tell Buckets we said hello. Have a hell of a broadcast. And whatever you do to celebrate Valentine's Day, make sure you do it upright. And it's satisfactory. Because I
will do that.
You want to challenge. You want to be challenged by the next day. All right. You want to be able to be a part of that, and not have to sleep in Spot's bunk, also known as the dog house, right there.
Thank you for the inspirational words.
All right, buddy. It's always a pleasure. You know that. Have a great weekend.
Indeed. See you, John.
It's Rob Blackman of the Boilermaker Radio Network. That is the voice on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I will say this regarding Valentine's Day. It's weird for those of you that suggest, I could be wrong about this. Hell, I don't know, but it kind of seems like that you probably should go overboard, even if you feel, for example, she doesn't necessarily want you to, because sometimes you don't get the expectations, right? There are a higher level of expectations that aren't told to you, that you don't understand. Just a little bit of advice. That's why I'm suggesting maybe go to Moyer up there, and that's can't miss, right? That is can't miss. Regardless, you're going to take care of yourself right there. Moyer Fine Jewelers in Carmel for Valentine's Day. Quick break, we'll come back. It is Kyle Neddenriep. A little bit of change going on conference-wise in high school athletics. We'll get to that and some other big stories. A little high school basketball, girls regionals coming up this weekend, too. Kyle joins us other side. Mike Chappell, top of the hour, tickets to give away, and a bourbon event that you will not want to miss live with us tomorrow. I'll explain next.
Pay that man his money.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Chappell, top of the hour. We got tickets to give away. Doobie Brothers, Coral Reefer Band, September. Ruoff Music Center. James comes back with John Cicada. Good for James right there. James, you know who John Cicada is?
I have never heard of him.
This is a 90s soft rock classic right here. Sometimes gets a little airplay on the JMV Takeover, the 90s. I believe he started out as a member. He was a part of the Miami Sound Machine with Gloria Estefan, which you would also know nothing about right there. Good reference, though. No doubt about that. Dustin Dopirak at the Star a little bit earlier. Rob Blackman, voice of the Boilermakers. I mentioned Mike Chappell at the top of the hour. Doobie Brothers tickets to give away. I Want My 80s featuring Rick Springfield, John Waite, Wang Chung, and Paul Young at the Fishers Event Center. We got tickets to give away for that. The Pro Volleyball All-Star Match on Saturday afternoon at the Fishers Event Center. Make sure you don't miss that. If you have time to make it up there, do it. That is an absolute blast, having been there before. And then tomorrow, we've got an elite-level bourbon raffle for you at the Cast Strength location of Big Red Liquors down in Greenwood, US 31 and Fry Road. Me and Brent Halverson. Going to be a packed house. Get there, and you can sign up all day long for the raffle, but to win, you have to be there when we start the raffle in the 5 o'clock hour. Just bring your ass and join us all day. Can you do that? Just tell your boss, here's what we're going to do. On this Friday, I'm going to go ahead and spend the entire day at a liquor store with JMV, and you'll be okay. But it's not just a liquor store. It's the Cask Strength location, Big Red Liquors, the legendary Big Red Liquors coming up tomorrow. Beginning at 3, you can, again, sign up for the raffle, and I'm talking just the highest level of bourbons, rare bourbon raffle. It is 50 bottles in all coming at you tomorrow. Big Red Liquors down in Greenwood. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, friend of the show, he is housed over in Brownsburg. He is a high school writer for the Star, and then some, really, for Kyle Neddenriep, who is with us. Hello, Kyle. How are you?
I'm doing well, John. How are you?
So are we at the early stages of conference realignment with some here? Because I'm kind of surprised, I guess, and you can sift through this. But Bloomington North goes to the mid-state, but Bloomington South isn't. I always thought that they would go together. It's kind of weird to me. Can you explain?
Yeah, well, part of the deal is the mid-state only wanted to add one team at this time. You know, so to get to 8, you know, you can only take one. And I know there's interest from both of those schools. You know, and probably without talking to anybody specifically, I think there's probably interest. You know, obviously to keep them together, and maybe that's something that happens down the road. You know, and I'm not saying the mid-state is imminently going to change. You know, in the next couple of years, but there are some schools that, you know, the Whiteland's enrollment's definitely exploding. You know, Martinsville's on the other end of the enrollment. They do really well in the conference. So, you know, I think we're just at a point where, especially around our area here in central Indiana, the enrollments of different schools are either exploding or, you know, maybe not so much, or staying stagnant. So you have schools that maybe fit better in some areas than another. And definitely in Greenwood's case, that was a situation for them, which is why they ended up changing conferences and creating this opening. But, you know, we've seen some conference realignment, certainly with, you know, Carmel and Center Grove most famously leaving the MIC a couple of years ago, or a few years ago now, and you know, Franklin Central getting in the HCC a few years ago as well. So, you know, things happen, and I think there'll be more definitely, you know, in the next few years that will change as well. And you know, someone asked today, you know, what's the big deal about being in a conference? And, you know, from a standpoint of following high school sports, it really is not the biggest deal in the world, but from scheduling purposes, and, you know, a lot of the sports have, you know, conference meets and, you know, or conference tournaments or whatever. So, from a scheduling standpoint, it is a pretty big deal, and obviously a source of pride or whatever to win your conference in any sport. So it's not the biggest thing. It's not like you get TV contracts like college sports in conferences, but there are definitely some advantages to being in a conference for sure.
He is Kyle Neddenriep with the Star. He is on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, which would lead to this. And you know how much I love Terre Haute in Vigo County. And it's always going to be awkward for North and South over there because of all the travel time it takes to either get somewhere else or for somebody to get there. We know where they are right now, but what's the long-term solution if there is one there?
I don't know that there is. I mean, unless they would go in with some of the smaller schools over in that area, which I don't know that those schools would want that. They just, it's always been strange for them, even when they were in the MIC. That's been several years ago now, but those travel, the travel for them is just, it's a lot. And, for the size of schools they are, there is no real perfect fit. We even see it when they're in sectional play, and the schools over here like Avon, Brownsburg, and Plainfield had to go play over there last year in the sectional, and it's just a long trip. You don't get the students over there like you normally would for a sectional, and so that just it's not a just from a geographical standpoint. I don't know that there's anything easily done. Conference Indiana's been I think a pretty good fit, but now you don't know what the future of that conference will be with Bloomington North leaving, and that creating a situation where you only have 5 schools, which is obviously not a long-term solution. So, what happens there? Perry Meridian went to the Mid-State, and so now you have the one Bloomington school, 2 Terre North, the 2 Terre Haute schools, Columbus North and Southport are left in there. So what else happens out of that? What other dominoes fall there? But yeah, to your point, I don't know. It's nothing against those schools. It's just a kind of a weird geography thing. The Bloomington schools fit better, with some of the schools here, or the southern part of the metropolitan area here than Terre Haute does to anything that's around here necessarily. So it's just a weird thing from a size of school and a geography standpoint.
I'm thinking that the South and Columbus North end up in the Hoosier Hills Conference. They'd have about 1,000 teams then, but that always had seemed something that was somewhat logical to me. But other than that, I mean, you're stacking, Bloomington North and Bloomington South, and maybe putting them in a conference. I'd always thought, them and Martinsville and Mooresville and Plainfield and Terre Haute North and Terre Haute South. I thought that would always be maybe the most logical solution to anything that you're looking for right here. So it just doesn't seem like that will ever happen.
No, and unless the Columbus East and Columbus North, that maybe could create something, in a new kind. And I'm just again speaking, thinking out loud, but because as of now, the 2 Columbus schools aren't together either in a conference. So that's not, it has happened before where you're looking at the Bloomington schools being apart, but yeah, I don't, there is no, you're right. That area would fit together, but that would also mean sort of breaking up the Mid-State, which I think the Mid-State's going to be pretty strong now with those 8 schools, at least for the next few years. So, I'm not sure what the easy answer would be.
So Kyle Neddenriep, who joins us. Any other movement that you're going to plan on seeing? Do you think you're going to see here relatively soon?
I don't. I mean, there certainly could be. I don't know that it's going to be imminent. I think the thing would be with Conference Indiana, with only having 5, they're going to have to do something. Certainly, there you have the Sagamore Conference that is. The Hoosier Legends Conference that has started. It was partly from the teams that were in the Sagamore Conference. So now you have, Danville, Harrison, Lebanon, McCutcheon that make up the Sagamore. So you have to have something that's going to have happen there as well. I heard some things about, potentially what could happen there, but, again, too far down the road probably to know exactly what happens. And, those schools have, been Harrison and McCutcheon just came in there, and then you had the Hoosier Legends start with Tri-West and some of those schools go in that direction, which I think that's going to be a really good league. Shelbyville joined that one. Greenwood did as well. So I think that's going to be a really good all-public school, small school conference now. So, yeah, there are some things that you wonder what's going to happen with Lebanon, Danville, Harrison, McCutcheon, but they don't really fit because of the distance, really fit with those Conference Indiana teams either. So I don't know. There could be, something happen in the future there. And then obviously the big ones are, whatever happens, if anything, with Center Grove and Carmel down the road too. And I don't think anything's super imminent on those two either.
Have they decided to shake hands on anything yet?
Yeah, I think there's been some, definitely have been playing in some sports, and I'm hopeful that football game will come about again. I think it'd be good for high school football, and it was such a hot rivalry at the time, and for years. It was probably one of the best rivalries. So, times change and other rivalries come up too. And, Carmel and playing, Fishers this coming season, and, they play Westfield now in the regular season. Those are great games. And I was at the Carmel Westfield game this past year, and, that was unfortunately one of those that got canceled because of or not canceled, but postponed to the next day because of the lightning and whatnot. But, that's going to be a great rivalry moving forward. A great crowd there, and will continue to be a great crowd, I'm sure, in coming years. But yeah, I think that's a game people, the history of that, and talking to some of the players who played in it when that rivalry did kind of come apart at that time, they're like, man, that's all those players wanted to play each other. Carmel and Center Grove. So that I think hopefully that'll happen again at some point.
I'm going to go really quick here, but Jason Gardner Jr., is he better than the older Jason Gardner? And start there. And are we seeing a former Jeffersonville standout that basically everybody knows, kind of stirring the echoes high school-wise down in the furthest southern points of the state of Indiana in high school basketball?
Yes, absolutely. On the second part, for sure. I think that's I watched that Jeffersonville-New Albany game last night, and I wish I would have been there. But rescheduled game, and it was just that's a great rivalry anyway. I've covered that before, and obviously those two teams are for 100 years have gone at it. But yeah, I love that Jeffersonville team. With Trey Singleton back now, especially, he's healthy. He is he's a real deal. And then those guards, man, Cooper and Douglas, and they've just got Sharon's got a great group there, and I think they're a threat when you're talking about who can come out of the South in Class 4A, and people know that. It's not like I think sometimes people up here, maybe don't know those teams, and so people know Jeffersonville. I mean, that's what they did last year. They were within a whisker of making it to the state finals. Ben Davis got them right at the end of that game in the semi-state championship. But yeah, they're really good when they're at their top. I mean, they're right up there with anybody in 4A. Fishers, they're definitely the team to beat, but I would not be shocked. Could we see Jeffersonville Fishers in the state championship? I'm not sure that's that's an impossibility at all. I think Jeffersonville's playing their best basketball right now. So, but yeah, they're very good. And to your first point, I'm not going to say that yet. I mean, what Jason Senior did in his career, I mean, he's phenomenal. But yeah, yes. Junior's coming on. He's exceptional and only getting better. And he's so quick and a good team player too, good passer. Just does everything well. So he's taken a huge jump from his freshman to sophomore year. And he's a big reason why Fishers is what they are right now.
Well done as usual, Kyle. We love having you on here. Keep us updated. I know you have girls regionals coming up this weekend, and then you'll get to the semi-state, and then obviously the fella's not too far away from the postseason as well. Keep us updated, okay?
Anytime. Thanks, John.
It's Kyle Neddenriep with the star of the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. Mike Chappell, top of the hour. Cluster Truck is in the house. James missed 3 days. And Evan shows up with a cluster truck. I'll explain coming up next.
the Bassar is a very naughty boy. Now go away.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Doobie Brothers tickets for you, number 9 at 239-1070 right now. September's going to roll around quicker than you know, quicker than we want, but this show is going to be worth it. Coral Reefer Band opens up for the Doobie Brothers with the Godfather Michael McDonald. Thank you, Live Nation, for being a part of this show, as you always are. Number 9 at 239-1070 can see the Doobie Brothers and Michael McDonald together at Ruoff Music Center. Meantime, James, hit his mic right there. Evan Sherrill's in studio from Cluster Truck once again. Hey, thanks for holding off. James really appreciates it because Nathaniel was in. I was on the road on Tuesday. Nathaniel was here. I was on the road, but James was not. And now James gets food. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm happy to hook up whoever's in studio, but of course I want to see you guys. You know, you guys are my favorites. So
outstanding. So what we got today, Evan Sherrill from Cluster Truck?
We're doing it again with the salmon and roasted veg for you.
Nice. I liked them.
I was happy to hear that. You liked
the
salmon. That's good.
I love the salmon, man. It was so good. And I even went after the I think they're sweet potatoes, right? Are those sweet potatoes that are in there, or are they red potatoes?
I think they're red potatoes. We do have side of sweet potatoes on the menu,
I think I can do red a little bit too, so that all worked for me right there. The mixed vegetables went right down the line with the program, brother. Well done.
Very nice, very nice. And then for James, brought our pretty much brand new carne asada tacos. Chef Jose made those special in the kitchen. They are his specialty. They are phenomenal. Big fan.
That is awesome right there. So, hey, by the way, how was last weekend?
Very good. Lots of game day specials going out the door. That is now off the menu. I'm sad about that, but coming up in March, we'll have the Dunk Fest special. Order a cheesy bread, 2 pounds of chicken strips, churros, and chips and queso, all for $29.99. And also this weekend, check out the Cluster Truck Instagram account. We're giving away Horizon League Championship tickets.
Man, oh man. Evan Sherrill of Cluster Truck, how can they get a hold of you? I mean, getting Valentine's, for example. You don't want to blank around on Valentine's Day. Just bring it to you. How do they do it?
That's a fact. Clustertruck.com or download our app and use code FAN, F-A-N, at checkout for $5 off.
Got it. So easy right there. And you guys did well for Super Bowl?
Yeah, did very well. Like I said, lots of game day specials going out the door. I think it totaled from our downtown Indy kitchen like 88 pounds of chicken strips,
nice,
88 hand-stretched pizzas. Very good.
That's awesome. My brother, next Tuesday we'll do it again.
Got you guys.
That's
Thank
Evan
you very
Sherrill.
much for the
One more time, Cluster Truck. We use the promo code FAN, right?
Yep, clustertruck.com. Use the code FAN.
You got it. Thanks, Evan.
Thank you, guys.
Evan Sherrill's in studio. Mike Chappell's on the other side. More tickets to give away. I do not want you going anywhere. And tomorrow, it is a Bourbon Bonanza. Yeah. Beyond, it's like I've had like 9 already. A Bourbon Bonanza beyond your wildest dreams. Explanation on the other side. We'll tease Mike Chappell about Aaron Rodgers, too, coming up.
Band back together.
Forget it. No way. We're on a mission from God.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
We are going to have an incredible 50 elite level, or if you will, rare bourbon bottle raffle tomorrow. Big Red Liquor's cast strength location. We are in Greenwood. This is a level of importance. Go ahead and put that high importance right now. The highest. I know it's Valentine's Day, and some of you are going to be held up to an incredibly high standard, but you also have to think about yourself. I don't know about you, but in terms of great gift-giving ideas, how about your significant other with just a rare of the rare bottle of bourbon? Sign up all day long, beginning at 9 a.m. at Big Red Liquors. At 5 o'clock, we will have the raffle. You got to be there to win. 50 bottles, rare bourbon, live there tomorrow. Me, Brent Halverson. I think the girls are going to come out and hang out with us as well. This is going to be a party. You can also do a lot of sipping, as I do gulping. There's going to be a blast. So sign up for the raffle. Again, that's tomorrow, Valentine's Day. But you got to be there to win in person. Going to be a great time tomorrow. Cast strength location, Big Red Liquors in Greenwood. That's US 31 and Fry Road. Meantime, on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline, let's welcome back to the show from CBS 4 and Fox 59, Mike Chappell. So I've been watching... I've been checking all the flights. When can I watch for Aaron Rodgers to fly in here on the Ursay plane? At what point?
I hope all he does is fly over Indy to like Vegas or whatever. I did something today on quarterback options. They're going to bring a veteran in. They just are. They have to challenge Richardson, to push Richardson. And I mentioned, 7 or 8 guys. And before that, I said, I'm not going to list Aaron Rodgers because I can't imagine these guys would add a 41-year-old quarterback with all the baggage and distractions that would come with it. So that'll probably heat up. The sooner he signs somewhere, the better off we are, so that it won't catch fire here. I all the time that he's been there for New York, with the guys, the media here have been talking about how awful it would be to have to cover that every day, whether it's with a McAfee interview or with other stuff. It would wear your ass out to have to cover stuff, just going on with him. So, would he have maybe some juice left for this team? Maybe, but I just don't know that that's what I would prefer they do.
So Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59, he at fox59.com. You can find his latest article. And we've been over Justin Fields a couple of times, and his situation may be compromised. Let's say if Pittsburgh wants to bring him back, if Russell Wilson ends up in Vegas, whatever. So let's just for one moment take him out of the equation. After that, who makes the most sense to you?
You mean after Justin Fields?
Yeah.
The guys I listed were Daniel Jones with the Vikings, a Zach Wilson, a Mac Jones, Jimmy Garoppolo. You want Jimmy G here? See, that's the problem is, of course, anybody you bring in free agency for the most part are going to be flawed. That's why they're out there. Flawed or too expensive. And right now, we don't know what the market is, because what's Pittsburgh going to do? Are they going to? They'll keep one of those guys. I would think the way they handled last year, they would keep Russell Wilson, because they benched Fields when he was 4-2 for Wilson, and Sam Darnold. I mean, Sam Darnold would look pretty good, but are the Vikings going to let him go? I'm not saying give him a new contract, but you can franchise or transition tag him and really limit his options. So until you know who's out there, it's hard to speculate, but we do it anyway. The thing with Justin Fields, though, is it would be such a similar skill set to Richardson, to where –, the offense would be tailored the same to both guys. But it's again, this is not a great year to be looking for that guy. Certainly not in the draft. They're drafting 14th.
Yeah.
And you're not gonna move up to get one of these two guys, because I'll tell you, one of these two guys, there's nothing that tells me either Sanders or Cam Ward are a sure thing. So good luck to whoever takes one of these guys up high. I wouldn't be opposed to taking a guy third round, fourth round, maybe to develop. Then you've got Richardson, and then the veteran, whoever that is, and then you've got a guy to develop. I don't think that's a bad idea, but I certainly wouldn't be in favor of that third or fourth round draft pick being the guy to push Richardson. That's not legitimate competition. So I'm really eager to see how this thing plays out, because the Colts aren't the only team looking for quarterback. They're just not. And when you have more than one team, looking for that guy, it's going to run up the cost of even these marginal guys. Sam Darnold, certainly, if he gets on the market, he'll get the biggest, price tag. Kirk Cousins, I didn't include him. We don't need to be. That's what the Colts. Indy doesn't need to be where older quarterbacks go to die. We don't need to have that with the Matt Ryans, and I think Joe Flacco can still play, but certainly not at his former level. I just think these guys are done with that type of quarterback, to where, boy, he's been good in the past. What if he's got another year or two? It worked with Phillip Rivers, and it might have worked the second year with Rivers if they had talked him into coming back. I think they go for that second-tier guy who can legitimately push Richardson, and if Richardson wins the competition, then that guy is the legitimate backup who probably will play at some point, because Richardson's missed half the games he's been available for because of injury.
So Mike Chappell of CBS4 Fox 59 has the article up. We're going to that right now at fox59.com. Do the Colts have budgetary concerns? Where's the threshold of what they would end up wanting to pay for somebody in this capacity? Yeah, for this capacity.
10, 12 million. I don't know. I don't know. And I didn't mention Jameis Winston. You want Jameis Winston?
For the quote. I think he'd be the best quote out of any of those guys.
Well, I tell you, he'd be fun to watch. I still, whenever one of your credentials is you're the NFL's only 30-30 man, 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions with Bruce Arians, which of course with Bruce Arians. But
that's like the equivalent of watching Dave Kingman back in the day in baseball. It was like all or nothing, right?
Yeah. So he had, he was at bat 5 times, and he had 2 dingers and 3 strikeouts. Or 1 and 4 or 0 and 5, but that I don't know if they want to go to that much of a risk taker quarterback. But you're going to have to spend something. I think they paid, was it $8 million for Flacco, $7 or $8 million, I think, for Flacco, if I remember correctly. It's going to take that, and they know it, and they'll budget. They've got about $28 million right now, according to overthecap.com. And they can clear space. But the cap space won't be an issue. They're going to release some guys. They just will. Whether that's a Braden Smith, whom we don't know what his status is, Samson Ebukam, Raekwon Davis. They can get the $50 million, I think, rather painlessly. And if they want to go more than that by redoing, a DeForest Buckner or Quentin or somebody, they can do that. So that's not an issue. It's going to be what they budget, and a veteran quarterback, they need to budget for whatever that's going to take. 10, 12 million, maybe that's a bit steep. I don't know, but and keep in mind that they've also got to address cornerback. They've got to address weak side linebacker. They've got to address safety. So. But that's what they're doing right now, is deciding, first of all, which of their own to re-sign, which probably not very many. And one that's really, really interesting is Odiengbo. He's exactly the kind of player that Ballard has targeted in free agency. He's like 25. He's 6'5", 6'6", 280, and he's still developing. You hate to give up on a pass rusher that soon, but I tell you, he's going to demand a contract. And if he gets on the open market, he will not be back. He'll get some big money from somebody. So it's difficult going right now to decide what you want to do, but all of that, as we've talked, doesn't matter unless you get the quarterback right. And since they don't know about Richardson, because how could you after 2 years? You don't know. Which at some level, when you don't know after 2 years, you kind of got an idea that maybe you do know that he's not the right guy. But they're not even remotely giving up on Richardson until they see how he comes back from the offseason, how he plays in OTAs and training camp.
Yeah, because they have no significant other alternative either. That's the other thing, too.
No, yeah. That's true, and that's true. It'd be a great thing if you knew. Now, with the injury, even if he was completing 60% of his passes and all that, but you still have the injury issue, you'd still have to bring in somebody who can play, but maybe not to the level that they want somebody to push him to the start as a starter, which they need to. And that's the plan from everything Chris Ballard told us. It would be similar if they knew he was a viable starting quarterback. I mean, not forget the injuries, but at the talent level, then you could find another Joe Flacco type of guy who hey, if he gets hurt for 3 or 4 games, Flacco can come in and do this or that. But they're beyond that. They're to where they're not sold on the fact that he's the guy. Because there's just too many moving parts, missing games with injuries, being benched for 2 games, 50% as a passer over 2 seasons. All of that just gives you pause. And ideally by year 3, one way or the other, but they don't know. So that's the wild card in this looking to 2025. Is he the guy? And if he's not the guy, what's our plan B? And I'm sure they've had meetings and they know which options their preference is. You've got to have 3 or 4 options because you don't know, even if you want Justin Fields, for instance, first, you don't know if he's available. And second, you don't know who else might want him. And again, you get 2 or 3 teams involved with pursuing a free agent and the price goes up. It just does. So, but it's interesting. And the closer we get to the new league year, March 12th, I think it is, it's going to be really interesting to talk at the Combine. When we talk to Chris and Shane Steichen, they'll dance around the topic probably because maybe they don't know. But they'll have a really good idea come Combine time, what they want to do, what they need to do. And then it'll just depend on whether the pieces fall into place and they can get the people they want and re-sign the players they want.
Mike, years ago when they brought in that consulting firm to find out what was not right within the organization, were you a part of any of that?
No, you mean not with the team, but with the franchise, the fan base and all that.
Yeah.
I answered, yeah. I'd forgotten that. I thought you were talking about the.
No. And that was right. That is what helped lead to the end of the Grigson era. I
thought you were talking about when they brought in like a divorce, a relations expert with Grigson and Pagano.
well, no. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up because this, to most folks out there, and accurately so, is much worse than that time. Why not those, I guess you would describe as extremes, to find a solution now as they tried back then?
Well, this is different into where you were trying to get Chuck and Ryan Grigson to coexist. You don't have that dynamic now. This is all about the quarterback, and we talked about when they drafted Richardson that Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen and Richardson were all kind of tied together, and they would sink or swim together. And right now, they're trying to keep their head above water, quite honestly. But I think this is different than that. Now, as far as having, consultants on the fan base, I don't know what. I mean, it's obvious what they need to do. They need to win. I'm not sure how you market this team any different other than, hey, this is our year. I would not like to be in the marketing department trying to sell what's going on, because it's either going to work or it's not. It's not like stick with us. Say, hey, we'll see what's going to happen. It's either going to work or it's not. And if it does, good for them. If not, it's going to be a teardown. It just has to be. So I'm curious with how it goes. I'm not optimistic just because I'm not, bullish on the quarterback situation. And I think this can be a pretty good team. It would have been a pretty good team if they had gotten decent quarterback play, which they didn't. So it's but the longer you go without that quarterback thing solved, is Jonathan Taylor's getting older, Ryan Kelly's going to be gone, Quentin Nelson's getting older. Who knows about Braden Smith? So you're going through some really good players at their prime, and those are years you never get back.
It just seems like the reason why I brought that up is because I was a part of that too, and I told Kevin this earlier this week. I just wrote Peyton Manning on top of the sheet of paper and left.
Well, that's it. That's the whole thing. You could have written Andrew Luck on the top of the paper. And I could name 10 other quarterbacks in the league that I'd like to have, which you're not going to have. People see Jamar Chase and they say, man, that's what we want. Well, the Colts have Michael Pittman and players under him, and that's what you've got. You'd love Justin Jefferson. You'd love Myles Garrett, but that's not who you got. So make I don't want to say make do, but make the best with what you've got. But it's just until the quarterback guy. I know I'm a broken record, but the quarterback thing dictates everything. It still amazes me. It amazes me that Jonathan Taylor ran for 1,800 yards and 20 touchdowns, and they didn't make the playoffs because, among other things, the quarterback didn't get the job done the last month of the season. So I don't know how. And they've got to take all these steps in the offseason at corner and at safety and weak side linebacker and maybe replace 2 or 3 members of the offensive line. But it's not going to work unless the QB works. That's why it's important to bring in a guy who, let's just say that you come to August and Richardson is not here, is not available, whatever reason. Well, the guy you have is at number 2 had better be able to take over and step in and have his I guess his career year or have a good year to help salvage the season. But it needs to be Richardson. He's shown a few things, but boy, again, I've said this: you can't complete 50% of your passes in the NFL. Can't do it. I don't care how dynamic you are in other areas. It just doesn't work. You're missing too many of those so-called layups that you've got to make 6 or 7 layups in a game, and Richardson makes 2, maybe. So I'm curious. I'm really curious how this thing unfolds over the next, 2 months, and then whatever you don't get in free agency, have that 14th pick hopefully as a tight end. Tyler Warren looks. It's funny. Tyler Warren from Penn State already wears number 44. I would just give him that 44 again and say, Dallas Clark wore this pretty good. How about giving us some Dallas Clark? So there's so many interesting aspects to this team. None more interesting than quarterback.
The quote from the Jim Rome Show, Mike: "We've got Pro Bowlers and playmakers at all 3 levels. Myself, DeForest Buckner, and Kenny Moore. This is Zaire Franklin. Add another playmaker to that mix, and it's going to help make this an all-time unit." That is the end of the quote from Zaire Franklin. And this is part of the problem. There was always so much yip-yapping about stuff that never comes close to fruition, and there's no evidence as to why you should even bring it up in that capacity in the first place. It's unrealistic. I know you want to pump up your guys and you want to pump up the situation, but at some point, organizationally speaking, from top to bottom, they got to stop selling this on hope and show some evidence at some point.
Just temper the expectations. Don't use all time if you're the owner, don't mention multiple Lombardis, which Jimmy has backed off of those that he used to just run out there every time we got him over the last 3 or 4 years. Yeah, you just need to. It's kind of like I don't know where the interview was, but Dak Prescott was asked about how competitive they are with the Eagles, and he said, "Well, we're close." No, you're not. No, you're not. And it puts a player in an awkward position, but that doesn't mean the player needs to take the bait and say all time or all we need is this. Hey, if you put Myles Garrett or hey, Trey Hendrickson on this defense, it takes you to another level. Not all time, but pretty good, and then we'll see. Because let's say you get Trey Hendrickson because of the new defensive coordinator and all that. You still need a corner or two. You still need a safety or two. And you still need a weak side linebacker. But again, a pass rusher of that level helps things. But Myles Garrett hasn't made Cleveland's defense an all-time anything. Pretty good, yeah, at times. But yeah, I do wish. But again, if we're talking in a scrum with a player and he mentions that without much prodding, I'll write it too. I just, from a team and a player's perspective, I wish they would. It would be better. Not I wish, because it helps us when they talk like that. But it serves the team and the player better to not really pump up expectations. Because if you take Zaire's comment at face value and they add Trey Hendrickson or they add someone of top level, then boy, this you said it's going to be an all-time unit. Well, see, that's where you need to back off and temper it. And I don't know what the full context of what Zaire said, but I've been around guys who during training camp or OTAs where, boy, this is going to be an all-time unit. We're going to do things that people haven't seen before, and you just think, boy, you need to just tone it down, because you haven't made the playoffs in 4 years. You just fired your defensive coordinator, so but that's what the more guys talk, you get that occasionally, which is good copy for us, but it just sets expectations so high. And this is with the franchise that's having trouble winning right now. If
Vinatieri is not a first ballot Hall of Famer, there's no such thing. What the hell's wrong with your colleagues?
Yeah, we had our meeting 6 weeks ago, and all I'll tell people, without getting too much in the weeds, is that the Hall of Fame changed the process. We used to go from cut to 15, or they had 15, cut to 10, cut to 5, and then you vote on the 5 guys, and those 5 guys needed 80% of the vote to get in. Well, they almost always got in. It was like 17 years when 5 guys got in. Well, this year they changed it from the 15 are cut to 10, and then are cut to 7, and then you vote on 5 guys of the 7 to make the class. Well, when you and Vinatieri made the cut to 7, but when you just do the math, when you're dividing our votes, our 50 votes or 49 votes among 7 players, it's hard for 5 guys to get 80. It's hard for 4 guys to get 80. But with Vinny, when I stood up and talked about Vinny, I was the second guy. Ron Borges of the New England area talked first. And I just told our guys, I said, if I were talking about any other player at any other position, I'd mention Adam Vinatieri and sit down. I said, you want clean resumes on first ballot guys, and this guy's got 4 Super Bowls. He won 2 Super Bowls at the end of kicks, all-time leading scorer, all-time leading this, that, and the other. I said, what are we doing? But I know, his one stain is he's a kicker, and that's ridiculous. That's just ridiculous. I was surprised, especially after he made the cut to 7. But then I was just disappointed because I've not agreed with all the first ballot guys we've had in, just because I just didn't agree. But Vinny, for crying out loud, I didn't get it. He made the cut to 7. Reggie did not make the cut from 15 to 10. So his push to Canton has stalled a little bit. And I'm going to be honest with you, with the way it is set up right now, cut to 10 and cut to 7, then vote on 5. It's going to be hard for the Reggie Waynes, Torrey Holtz, the Willie Andersons, people like that. It's going to be hard for those guys to get in because, again, you're going to have one or two guys every year that are sort of locks, although I thought Luke Kuechly and Adam Vinatieri were pretty good locks this year. But it's going to be hard for that third or fourth guy to get in. Next year it's Larry Fitzgerald, Frank Gore, whom and I'm forgetting the other surefire guy that's going to be up next year. So it's really hard. If Phillip Rivers is one of the guys, so it's going to be hard for the other people coming back to get in. But that's the rules that the Hall of Fame has come up with. They want it to be difficult to get in, which it should be. But what we're doing is we're getting the 2 or 3 guys in, 3 or 4 guys. Again, it's a minimum 3 guys. So if 3 guys get in, then you're having 15 or 12 that didn't get in, and it just kind of backlogs things for the next few years. And before you know it, Tom Brady's eligible, J.J. Watt, and people like that, Aaron Donald. So it's a difficult process, but that's a long-winded way of saying I was very surprised and disappointed Mindy didn't get it because his resume is what first ballot Hall of Famers are all about.
So Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59, fox59.com, with some of the quarterbacks that he believes the Colts could take a swing at coming up here.
Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite you want to have?
I would think right now, because it looks like Justin Fields may end up returning to Pittsburgh. If Russell Wilson ends up in Vegas, we shall see. Daniel Jones is probably as good as any choice, which is not a good choice. So I would start right there.
It's not, but that's where you are. When you're looking for a quarterback in a bad year, you're just not going to get the guy that you really want because everybody's flawed. Everybody's flawed.
Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, next week, you and I again. Thanks, buddy.
Looking forward to it. Be well.
Mike Chappell of CBS 4 and Fox 59 next week at this time. Tom's Watts Bar as the Pacers resume after the All-Star break at home against Memphis, and Bud Light will be with us down there for the Mini Hoops Mania once again next Thursday. We shall see you there. A very special event tomorrow. I'll explain. We'll come back, and I want my 80s tickets coming up before the top of the hour. 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
James over there, I'm John. Thank you for joining us. Busy show today. Hopefully you've been involved on the road tomorrow. I want my 80s tickets before we bail here at the top of the hour. Jim McCann in Southern California writes this. They say it never does, but indeed right now, JMV, it's raining here in Southern California. To brighten things up, how about you and my Chappell follow Laney's favorite band suggestion with Little Lies on your Colts talk? Oh, I get it right there. Well done, Jim McCann. Yeah, I don't know if, I don't know. I hesitate to say lying. I just think mismanaged. Just a lot of crossing your fingers and hoping. And then you get people that get mad if you don't believe. And they get mad at you if you don't believe, even though they've given you no reason to believe, no evidence to believe. There's nothing to support it. So a lot of mixed bag things right there. JMV, how is it that we can let such talent go that will get big money on the open market, but we won't keep them? We way overpaid for the O-line. I get it, but why do we not pay premium positions top dollar? Well, and then, I mean, you're going to have somebody else go someplace else and play at a higher level. Again, it is so much about the execution around here. And until they get over themselves, then, yeah, good luck with ever seeing that. And believe me, I think a lot of you are on board with this right now. This is nothing that can be described as you're just being a hater. This is living with a sense of reality. And it sucks, but it's the truth. From Clayton Van Devender, what do you think, JMV, of the realistic targets? Would you rather have McCollum or Beard? I've said this before. McCollum is up and coming. It's very much, not exactly like, but very much of the same category of Kurt Cignetti in football. Little known. However, I guess you could strike it rich with a guy on the next level. So, I mean, really, all I've heard of him lower level than Drake with this year so far. Yeah, taking over for DeVries when he went to West Virginia from Drake. And, you know, we know how good that program also can be described kind of like Dayton, that you just slot anybody in there and all of a sudden they start winning. Now, this is a lower level than Mo Valley, but you know what I mean. Now, Chris Beard is different. And I've said this before, and I know it makes people angry. I think Chris Beard would be, if he didn't come along with the luggage that he brings everywhere, he would be the type of guy that across the board as a coach, as a presenter of the program to the talent that is necessary, and just getting on the ass and into the players to the level that all of you would like. I think he would be the guy that would normally be the guy. I think he is kind of that, at least to me. If you were going to diagram somebody as perfect for the gig as a coach, and I'm just talking about as a coach in this era, what is necessary in this era, he is that. But evidently, he's not going to get a sniff, and this is just what happens when you have overwhelming baggage. And again, it's been allegations, but as we know in this particular world, it is still baggage. And according to most that report on that program, the closest with that program, he is not going to get a sniff. But as what you look at, to coach up a team and what you want in instant gratification, longer term, you want somebody that brings in the talent, that yells at the talent, that gets everything out, literally every last drop out of the talent. I would say he's a guy that's able to do that. I'm not suggesting that nobody else on that list can either, but that would be, to me, the guy. But again, he's just got a factor that clearly down there to most cannot be overcome. So that was my thought altogether. Litzy writes this, JMV, Gen X, cooch, hot drifter living in your basement as a teenager. They just don't make movies like that. There's no doubt. Bourbon Bash tomorrow. Cast Drink, Greenwood. We're celebrating Valentine's Day with a Bourbon Bash. 3 until 6, daily sipper tasting and sale, rare bourbon raffle. And me with an incredibly fat-ass picture right here. At some point, we're probably going to have to get new ones. And listen, I felt fine with that version of me, but I don't even that doesn't even look close to like me.
It's really noticeable when on the streaming computer over here.
Yeah.
When you're on remote, it will sometimes freeze on, I guess, a screenshot of you from like 9 months, 10 months ago, and then I'll update it and it will go to the current remote picture. And it's a night and day difference. I mean, it's startling to look at almost.
That is what 72 pounds in the rear view will do. And here's what's funny about it. You go back to late June, early July, I was quoted as saying, I don't think I need this butt. That was my quote. What a dumbass. I don't need this, but yeah, I guess you did. Maybe you did. It's Thomas in Premier Weight Loss. Actually, I'm very flattered when you mention it. I'm even more flattered. Like Rob asked me yesterday, he said, hey, I'm thinking about getting on my journey here. Would you mind talking to me about it? He's a listener to the show. I absolutely don't mind. In fact, I embrace it when you ask me, and I will meet Rob out somewhere, and we will chat it up. I'm no expert by any stretch of the imagination. But I absolutely will tell you all about it, and I will meet you wherever you want to meet. I have no problem. Because as you well know, with this show and with me and with you and with our partners, I am 100% invested. The one thing you're not going to get out of me, there's going to be no half-ass effort involved whatsoever. It's going to be, we're going right for it, full bore. Yeah, it is flattering to hear from you with that in mind. All right, let me take a break. We'll come back for a final time. I want my 80s tickets. That's Rick Springfield. That's John Waite. It's Paul Young. That's Wang Chung. Fisher's Event Center. I got tickets to give away for that coming up too. And we'll get you set for tomorrow. A final handful of NBA games before the All-Star break coming up later on tonight that does not include the Pacers. If you missed any of these conversations, we'll rehash the podcast and more coming up next. Sit tight. AAA Membership Lounge via YouTube Live. Thank you for listening. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Ahoy, Ploy.
93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
This would be Wang Chung in Dancehall Days. Take your baby by the hand. I want my 80s coming to the Fishers Event Center. You guys got to be a part of that. This is going to be great. I want my 80s, the summer tour at the Fishers Event Center. Wang Chung is going to be a part of it. You guys will want to be a part of that as well. I promise you that. Rick Springfield is the headliner. Tickets available for this event. I believe this is on Tuesday, June the 17th at the Fishers Event Center. Wang Chung, as I mentioned, Rick Springfield. Rick Springfield's got 11 songs you guys know by heart right now. Catalog is pretty big. Rick Springfield, Wang Chung, Paul Young. Paul Young has a song called I'm Gonna Tear Your Playhouse Down, and it is a new wave classic. John Waite of the Babies, John Waite solo, John Waite of Change from Vision Quest, who told me once upon a time he did not make a cent. You remember I mentioned this a little bit earlier, Vision Quest 40-year anniversary. Loudon Swain, the wrestler, was climbing the pegboard to prove that he deserved a shot at shoot. Remember that? Well, that was the song Changed by John Waite. He told me in an interview once he did not make a cent from that song. Great concert, though, and everybody's going to play a full set. Number 9 at 239-1070. I want my 80s extravaganza coming at you. All right, 239. Is that, are we good here? Is Tom ready? Does Tom want to get on the air here? Hey, Tom at 239-1070. I'm sorry, I just saw you there, brother. What's up?
Oh, that's all right. What's up, Skinny Man?
What's happening, man?
Hey, I just wanted to get with you about the Colts, and you pretty much said it, but most of the people kind of in my inner circle and a lot of outer circle, if you will,
yeah,
we're done with the talk.
Yes.
Okay, it's time to put up and shut up.
You should be. Yes.
And we don't want to hear from Shane Steichen anymore because he never tells you anything anyways, and the players just need to keep the trap shut until they start showing us something on the field.
Yeah, and I thought Mike had a good point where he said, you know what, if you want to answer a question, that's okay, but it has to be all-time great and all this just ridiculous, hyperbolic bullcrap. That's, I think, really what drives people nuts, Tom.
Yeah, I agree. We're over it. Yeah, until we can – I don't want to say we're not proud of the Colts. Still a Colts fan, but at the same time, like I said, put up and pretty much shut up.
Tom, are you going to join us at our Bourbon Bonanza tomorrow?
No, I'm not going to be able to.
Dang it, Tom.
I'm gonna be out of town. I know.
Hey, Tom, man, nothing says I love you like a rare bottle of one raffled off bourbon. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know, but I don't have any I love yous out there, so.
Oh, okay. Well, nothing. Let me rephrase. Nothing creates I love you. Or nothing creates
dating again, so.
What'd you just say? What?
I said I left my wife when she started dating again, so that was,
No. Well, I guess I should not have brought this up. I apologize, Tom.
Good. It's all good.
Well, okay. Okay, for the situation. Nothing says I love you strange like a bottle of one raffled off elite level bourbon. I love you strange.
I hear you.
Got me?
I hear you.
All right, buddy.
All right.
We got to see you again soon, Tom. Thanks for the call.
Yep. Have a good one. See you, buddy.
Gotcha, man. Nothing says I love you strange. Nothing says I love. What's your name again? Tomorrow, man, please join us for 3. It's going to be a blast. Me and Brent Halverson tomorrow, and I believe both Lindsay Monroe and the Princess of Ice Cream. Reportedly, the princess will grace us as her princess-like presence tomorrow. Awesome. Hey, I've heard from Hagan, too, but he called me at 1 a.m. Hey, shout out to Josh and Mike Ross in Bloomington before the event. You know I'm going to be wound up because I'm going to go play a little bit of hoop down at the Hyper tomorrow, just before midday. So you're going to get a really wound-up host tomorrow at Big Red Liquors Cast Strength in Greenwood on Valentine's Day. 31 and Fry Road. Cannot wait to see you there, James. Great job today. Back with you tomorrow in Greenwood at Big Red Liquors at 3. We'll see you all there.